tonight. The inquiry into the Emergencies Act continues in Ottawa.
That's where I spent a lot of time on the ground.
Today's testimony involves a Saskatchewan connection. Also, who's in and who's out? The Riders make changes to their coaching roster. Plus, from behind the scenes to the front of the stage, we'll bring you the story of one burgeoning Regina musician.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, November 1st, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. A truck driver from Swift Current testified in Ottawa today. Chris Barber was the first protester to be questioned at the inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act. Barber opposed cross-border COVID mandates, and he led a convoy of truckers to Ottawa from Western Canada. CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian has the latest.
A sound that became synonymous with the trucker convoy, now denounced by one key organizer.
I'll be the first to admit the horns annoyed me. I did everything in my power to try and get the horns to stop.
Chris Barber, one of the first people behind the initial protest and first to take the stand. His words quickly contradicted by this video.
Hey! They've already filed a $4 million civil lawsuit against us for horns. You guys shut up over there? Am I doing my part?
Would that be an example of you being a troll?
No, that's me being a funny guy.
Barber is facing charges of obstruction and mischief. He did refer to himself as an internet troll today. His past online presence includes this video.
Keep hearing that Trudeau wants our guns. So does he want them bullets first or that way? Come on, get him.
Barber also denied reading an online document promoted by another convoy organizer which spoke about forcing the government's resignation. And then there was this.
Were you aware, sir, that Deputy Prime Minister Freeland received a death threat?
I was not, no.
An email dated from a couple of days after the Emergencies Act was invoked, the sender saying they declare war on all the Canadian government for lying about COVID-19, adding Freeland will get a bullet to the head.
I assume you would reject this statement and any such action.
Unequivocally, yes.
The last question then is, would you agree with me that when you start a fire and fan the flames, it can get out of control? And you had no control over those other factions who had come to this protest.
That's where I spent a lot of time on the ground.
Barber also denied knowledge of something else the Commission heard for the first time today. That Ontario Provincial Police arrested a man with body armor, knives, and a machete in connection with the Mental Health Act during the protest. And he denounced Pat King, another key convoy organizer who faces criminal charges of his own and is expected to testify later this week. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Saskatchewan government has introduced a bill aimed to confirm the province's jurisdiction over its natural resources. The government called it a top priority of the fall sitting. The Minister of Justice says they're not picking a fight with the federal government, just drawing a line. Adam Hunter has the details.
That Bill number 88, the Saskatchewan First Act, be now introduced and read a first time.
The provincial government's Bill 88 was read for the first time this afternoon. Minister of Justice Bronwyn Eyre calls it historic. Eyre says the Saskatchewan First Act would amend portions of the provincial constitution. She says the bill insists that the province has jurisdiction over non-renewable resources, operation of its electrical generation, and regulation of environmental standards, greenhouse gases, and other emissions.
This isn't about Fed bashing for kicks. This is about quantifying, assessing, and defining economic harm. It's about our place in this federation and our responsibility to the people of Saskatchewan to foster economic growth.
Eyre and the government argue that federal environmental policies harm Saskatchewan economically and deter investment. The act would also create a tribunal which will be called upon to assess the economic impact of such policies.
There's nothing in the amendments that say that the province can disregard federal laws or that federal laws will no longer apply in Saskatchewan. What the law does is it recognizes that that's the role of the courts, and the courts are the ultimate arbiters of where that dividing line is between federal and provincial jurisdiction.
The opposition says it will review the legislation and consult with constitutional experts before making its position clear.
If it makes the government feel better, fine. I don't think it has a whole lot of legal significance. Again, if they really want to help further the interests of Saskatchewan people, there are actionable items that they could do right now, and that would be resuming the equalization lawsuit.
Under Lauren Calvert, the NDP launched a lawsuit over equalization against Ottawa, but in 2008, that lawsuit was dropped by the Saskatchewan Party government. As for this bill, the NDP doesn't have the numbers to block it, but it can slow it down if it wants. Adam Hunter, CBC News, Regina.
And the provincial NDP opposition was repeating its calls today for an apology from the Minister of Corrections, Policing and Public Safety. The party has been asking Christine Tell to apologize for what it calls her, quote, ridiculous comments last week. Tell was speaking after the throne speech to which convicted murderer Colin Thatcher was invited.
He is a free citizen.
Does it matter that he was invited by Lyle Stewart?
No, not at all. We're able to invite who we wish to invite. Colin is not somebody who's active on warrants, has anything to do with the justice system at this point in time. He's free to come and go.
In fact, Thatcher is still on parole. He's serving a life sentence for the first-degree murder of his ex-wife Joanne Wilson in the 1980s. Today, Tell didn't apologize for her own comments, but she did say she shares in the government's apology that Premier Scott Moe put forward yesterday.
Last week, I was asked about this subject's presence, and I responded. I responded without considering the implications that this invitation would have. The member who invited this subject should have used better judgment. The subject should never have been invited to this legislature.
This issue has prompted the NDP to renew its calls for operational funding to second-stage housing. The CBC's Yasmin Renea looks at why the government may be willing to cough up money now when it hasn't in the past.
The opposition NDP says if the government is serious about reducing domestic violence, it's time to fund second-stage shelters.
Will the Sask party finally follow up their words with real action and commit to operational funding for second-stage shelters today?
Saskatchewan is one of the few provinces that doesn't give any sustainable funding to second-stage shelters. These apartment-style units provide long-term housing and programming for women and children trying to escape abusive situations.
And offers some stability after people have come through really tumultuous and dangerous times. To be able to stay somewhere for a year or more is really important and necessary for survivors and their children.
But without operational funding, second-stage shelters say they can't expand and open up more apartments.
In Saskatchewan, we see there's definitely a need for more second-stage shelter spaces. These spaces are being used and they're often full.
The NDP raised the same issue in the legislature 2.5 years ago. The Sask party government said it would look into the issue.
Survivors of domestic violence deserve more than a commitment to just simply look into the issue.
But there's still no operational funding. Now, in the wake of Colin Thatcher's invitation to the throne speech, the NDP is renewing its calls for support. The government says it will consider second-stage core funding, but hasn't made any promises.
It is the natural next step to look beyond intervention and prevention and that emergency period where women and people who are facing violence have to immediately find somewhere to go.
At least one second-stage shelter tells CBC News it's currently in talks with the province about funding. The latest data shows Saskatchewan leads the country with the highest rate of reported intimate partner violence. Yasmin Renea, CBC News, Saskatoon.
The Saskatchewan Roughriders are doing some house cleaning. It comes just days after a disappointing season wrapped up. The team has informed 3 coaches their services are no longer required. But as Glenn Reed reports, the 2 main decision makers will remain.
This last season was a tough year, and when you go through tough times, I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned, and I think some of those lessons are still going to be learned in the next, 3 to 4 months. But
Craig Dickinson is well aware coaches are hired to be fired, but in his case, he's been given a mulligan to make amends. The Riders finished at 6-12 in 2022. However, what was shocking was how they finished. It was barely a month ago they were all but a lock to earn a playoff spot, but 7 straight losses knocked them out of it. After he was given the assurance his job was safe, Dickinson informed offensive coordinator Jason Moss plus 2 other offensive assistants their contracts would not be renewed.
no, I didn't know for sure, but last night I got word that they were going to retain Jeremy and myself, and I had already had an idea of what I wanted to do with the staff, so at that point I moved forward on that.
The offense floundered in 2022, mostly due to an offensive line that surrendered 77 quarterback sacks, and a quarterback who led the team to back-to-back Western Finals who lost confidence in his own protection. Cody Fajardo, who becomes a free agent in February, will likely not be back.
I wish I would have went down with the ship and went down these last 2 games, and then whatever happens after that happens after that. But the fact that I didn't get to play those last 2 games really hurt me, and it was really emotional for me.
It was the Rough Riders' worst season since 2016. Not a long time in sporting circles, but more was expected in 2022 from an organization hosting the Grey Cup. That falls on General Manager Jeremy O'Day, who will also be given another opportunity to make it right in 2023.
I'm the guy that hires the head coach and here's the staff, and I'm the guy that signs the players, right? So ultimately it comes down to me, and the responsibility is all on me. So it is my responsibility to make sure that we have a team that's going to go out there and compete to win every game, and ultimately be in a position at the end of the year where we have an opportunity to win a Grey Cup.
In that regard, they fell woefully short, but in the end it was felt so many factors were out of O'Day's control, such as COVID and injuries.
At the end of the day, I just truly believe that he's the best position to make the corrections that are required to get us back on track.
Glenn Reed, CBC News, Regina.
Well, the pumpkins are a little snowier in Meadow Lake today. This is the city's first taste of the white stuff. It missed out on that snowstorm that hit the south last week. Well, there's more where that came from, though. Christy Kleimenhage will have our forecast when we come back.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. 22 model clear out is on now.
And meteorologist Christy Kleimenhage joins us now for a look at our forecast. Christy, a beautiful night for the kids to get out trick-or-treating last night, and that followed a very nice last few days of October, too.
It did, and I mean, it really set the stage for what the month was in the province. It was a warm October on the tail end of a warm fall, and now here we are getting into November where we are going to see a wintry blast. But here's a look at some of our temperatures for October in terms of how they compared to normal. So those temperature departures are what all of our average temperatures looked like compared to what's normal. So you can see a 4-degree departure from normal in La Ronge, which doesn't sound like much, but it actually made it the warmest October on record for La Ronge, and even Saskatoon and Regina coming in warmer than normal as well. And it wasn't just the heat, still a little dry across October as well, seeing precipitation amounts at about 3 millimeters in some areas, 10 millimeters in Meadow Lake. La Ronge very, very dry, again seeing its driest October on record. Now, in terms of our temperatures right now or through this afternoon, it was much milder, double-digit temperatures in Regina, 11 degrees there, 4 degrees in the Saskatoon area, and a little bit blustery. We are seeing a system that's moving in from the Colorado region, which is already starting to drive up our wind speeds, and those will continue through the day tomorrow. Something to keep in mind, it will be a blustery really end to the week and start to November. Now, as for our satellite and radar, we're already seeing that low pressure system that's moving in starting to make its way in. We're seeing rainfall through the Saskatoon area this afternoon, looking to see the risk of freezing rain across central Saskatchewan tonight, and then making way for the heavy snow tomorrow. We do have snowfall warnings in effect for much of central and north central Saskatchewan, seeing the risk of about 10 to 15 centimeters of snowfall through the day tomorrow before things wrap up on Thursday, and a little bit of messy weather for areas like Saskatoon, even all the way down towards Swift Current, which is why we have that special weather statement in gray. We are seeing the risk of, a messy mix, not quite to warning criteria, but definitely inclement weather to get us into our midweek. Now, as for what's responsible, that low pressure system really sitting to the south, skirting through pretty fast and making way for high pressure. So this system will pass through really quickly, but it will pack a wintry punch. Looks like areas like Regina are going to miss out on the snowfall, though. Most of that snow really sitting towards central Saskatchewan, where again you could see 10 to 20 centimeters, even up to 25 centimeters possible in some regions as well. Now, as we look towards our forecast, in terms of wind, we are seeing gusty conditions through the day tomorrow. That will continue. And then as you make your way into your weekend, again, on and off windy weather expected. So for Regina, over the next 7 days, 9 degrees tomorrow, so still above seasonal. Sunshine on and off, and you will see a little bit of messy weather, but again, that messiest weather really staying further north. Next week, that big dive in temperatures down to the minus single digits. As for Saskatoon tomorrow, a mix of rain and snow, the risk of some freezing rain out there, 0 degrees for tomorrow. Temperatures right around the freezing mark all the way into the start of the weekend before things drop off. Over into next week, temperatures back to the minus double digits. So definitely a more wintry forecast than what we saw into yesterday with Halloween, Ethan. Definitely something to be prepared for the next few days.
All right, snow tires are on and shovels are at the standby. Thanks for that, Christy. Welcome back. As of today, there's a new, cheaper option available for online streaming. Netflix has launched its lower-cost service that includes commercials. And as the CBC's Philip de Montigny reports, it's just one part of the company's larger strategy to boost profits.
It's something never seen before on Netflix. 4 to 5 minutes of ads per hour on the streaming service. That's if you sign up for its new cheaper membership for $5.99 a month, an option for anyone looking to save money right now. And according to a new survey, a lot of Canadians are. 1 in 3 have cancelled at least one streaming subscription in the last 6 months. But some Netflix users say they are willing to pay more to avoid those ads.
The consumerism, the marketing, they're loud, they're kind of obnoxious. I don't like them. I just can't stand commercials.
Experts say Netflix is trying to seduce price-conscious consumers ahead of plans to crack down on password sharing next year.
It's a mitigation strategy to get people, as they're changing the digital backend, to make sure people can't share their account with 7 people, okay? To not lose the people who are like, okay, well, now I can't share my dad or my friend or my sister's account.
Netflix says the new lower-cost plan won't include its entire library, and subscribers won't have the option to download titles for remote viewing.
It's good.
Still, in New York, marketing agencies are excited at the prospect of buying ad space on Netflix.
We've known it's been coming since the inception of Netflix. It's an economic reality that at some point they were going to run out of people willing to pay for it, and they were going to have to find new ways to grow.
Netflix isn't the only streaming service testing the waters in the US. HBO Max and Paramount Plus are among those already offering cheaper ad-supported memberships, a trend we're likely to see more of here in Canada. Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
And Christy is back for one last look at tonight's weather.
Thanks, Ethan. And still not too bad of a night in Regina. Temperatures above seasonal. Here's a look at our forecast. Temperatures in the high single digits. We should be around about a 4-degree daily high at this point of the year, and we are looking at about 7 degrees still at midnight tonight. By tomorrow morning, a little bit of cloud cover, but it's going to be a quieter day, a little blustery, 2 degrees at 8 in the morning. Now in Saskatoon, definitely a more active forecast, 2 degrees at midnight, cloudy conditions, the chance of freezing rain overnight, and through the day tomorrow, snowfall building in, cloudy conditions at 8 a.m., 0 0 degrees and again, windy conditions. So we do have special weather statements in effect for much of central Saskatchewan, some snowfall warnings as well. It's going to be a wintry blast for tomorrow. So something to keep in mind for your morning commute. You might want to budget a little extra time, especially if you're in Saskatoon or a little bit further north.
All right, sending warm thoughts to Saskatoon and company. Thanks for that, Christy. And finally tonight, an R&B artist from Regina is having a breakthrough moment. For years, the Nigerian-born Tova worked behind the scenes in the music industry, but it took the pandemic and a friendly bet to make him launch a music career of his own. He shares his story with the CBC's Peter Mills.
Too bad to fail. If you fail with grace, life can be your blood, do it at your pace. Everyone I know runs a different race.
We obviously have been successful already. You are achieving those musical dreams. But it's interesting because technically you didn't start till 2020.
Yes, I did not. It was a brilliant time to start me.
Yeah, tell me about that period. I mean, you're a student for one, which is hard enough, but then also a global pandemic at the same time.
Well, yeah. So I was very deeply involved in my university. I was student union president over at the University of Regina, and that ended just as the lockdown phase of the pandemic started and everyone was at home. And it was like, well, I'm not doing that anymore. What am I going to do with myself? And it was then in that crushing period of loneliness, not just for me, but for probably almost everybody worldwide. It was me and myself and my piano once again, and it was that process of rediscovering the things that I loved most about music and the things that I loved most about myself.
You know everybody needs some love. Who's gonna stand by you, be by your side when you fall further back down than you thought you will? Answer me.
Did you actually lose a bet, and that's why you became?
I did. It's a very funny story. I was working in music in the background for a long time, and as a writer, vocal producer, and whatnot. And one of the friends with whom I was working with, he wasn't having a great day that day, and I was like, hey, do it this way or don't do it that way. And he had it with me. And he was like, how about you go do your own thing and stop bugging me? And I was like, sure, fine. And then we had a bet, and the wager was that if I was wrong, I'd have to make my own music. And this was in 2019, and I thought, I'll get to it one day eventually.
Doesn't make an ocean. You know you can count on me for rest.
Yeah, little did you know, and now you have Care Package out.
Yes, I do. Care Package.
Why do you care?
Why do I care? Care Package is a collection of songs that I've been with for over the course of this last year. And this last year has been hard. Well, every year since 2020 has been hard for various reasons. And the songs on Care Package are self-reflections. They're me interacting and experiencing the world and just writing down the things that I'm feeling and whatnot. And for a period of months, they became the soundtrack where I would see something pretty and like, oh, I wonder why things are this way.
And that's it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/Sask or /Saskatoon, or you can also subscribe to our CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Glenn, Reed, and Christy are back with more local news and weather at 11. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great night.